Close your eyes. What do you hear?
I hear the water. I hear the birds.
Do you hear your own heartbeat?
No.
Do you hear the grasshopper, which is at your feet?
Old man, how is it that you hear these things?
Young man, how is it that you do not?
Welcome to the Friends of Dan Music Podcast. I'm Dan Miles. You've been listening to the music of Jamie Glaser. That was called Number 33. Can be found on his Music for Pets and People album that he released in 2008. Jamie is currently the guitarist for the Anderson Ponty Band, a collaboration between former Yes vocalist John Anderson and innovative French violinist Jean-Luc Ponty. Jamie's also worked with Chaka Khan, Bryan Adams, The Manhattan Transfer, Lenny White, and Chick Corea, among others. And his guitar can also be heard on many television soundtracks, including Who's the Boss?, Married with Children, Saved by the Bell, and Seinfeld. In 2006, he published a book called Hear the Silence about how he's coped with his bipolar and post-traumatic stress disorders. Despite the serious subject matter, the book is actually very positive, uplifting, and inspirational. We've got a lot to cover here, so let's get this party started. Joining me on the Skype from Salt Lake City, Utah is Jamie Glaser. Welcome.
Hey, Dan, how are you?
I'm great. I know you're about to head back out on the road a few days from now. So first of all, I want to thank you for making the effort to work us into your hectic schedule.
It's my pleasure. I've been looking forward to talking to you.
The main two things I want to talk about are your solo music and your book. But first, let's talk a little about the Anderson Ponty Band. Of course, you have a long history with Jean-Luc Ponty. You toured with him for years and played on many of his classic albums. Two other band members, Wally Minko, and I saw an animal walk behind you. That's great.
Yes, I have two dogs in the studio with me.
Beautiful. Let's welcome them too. Two other band members, Wally Minko and Rayford Griffin. They played with Jean-Luc Ponty years ago too. So it was a nice little reunion for you guys. I understand John Anderson was the driving force behind the project, in that he's the one who initially approached Jean-Luc about doing it.
You know that I wasn't there, but my understanding is that at some point they were on the same bill, maybe with Yes, and they had great conversation, great respect for each other, and they met at airports and other things through the years. They were in contact, I believe, in the late '80s about the possibility of doing something, You'd have to know John. He's someone who loves to find new sounds and new writers. There were even people on Facebook who've written me quite a bit, actually, that they've written a song with John, and they're just people from Facebook. So he reaches out to a lot of people. But John was very impressed with Mahavishnu Orchestra, and I think that was his greatest inspiration to get to know Jean-Luc back then. Also, just want to backtrack just a tiny bit. When you mentioned Wally and Rayford, Keith Jones is playing bass with us, and he was also with the group.
Yeah.
Our bass player. He was. If you see the Montreal Jazz Festival clips, he was with us back then. He actually took over for Randy Jackson of American Idol fame, who was with us. He was dynamite. Baron Brown did the album, but was unable to make the tour, so we had to replace him. He had 6 months of work booked already, and it would have been not good for his career to leave. Or I guess he had to make a tough decision there.
Yeah,
yeah. Very happy to have Keith. And indeed, it's like being back in the 80s a little bit, except that we don't play the same. We hopefully have grown and evolved, and we don't go on there thinking we're an old fusion band or any of that kind of thing. I know when I'm playing, I try to keep current, and I don't want to be who I was in the YouTube videos from the 80s, you know.
Sure, musically, yeah, but at a personal level, I mean, it's a comfort level for Jean-Luc Ponty. It's a band he's familiar with, and John Anderson's a new situation, but you guys have all played together, so it just seemed to really click.
I'm thrilled, man. I'm thrilled to be with this particular group. I have a lot of responsibilities in APB.
Right. I saw the gig in Scottsdale with all the people you mentioned and Keith on bass, and I saw all the things you were doing. And we'll talk about that in a second, but I want to listen to a little bit of music. The band's aptly titled debut album, Better Late Than Never, features reworkings of classic material from both of their catalogs with their respective input, breathing new life into the material. Both of them are music legends. So when I saw you guys in Scottsdale, it's funny because, you know, certain points in the show, I'd be focusing on John Anderson. Then I look over and realize, oh, yeah, Jean-Luc Ponty's here. And then later it'd be the opposite. You know, he'd be playing a jig or something. I'd be all wrapped up in Jean-Luc Ponty nostalgia. And I go, oh, yeah, John Anderson's here. It's like either one would have resulted in a happy audience, but getting them both, you know, was a nice bonus. It makes sense that they would have a lot of overlap in their fan base. Because when you think about it, their material has proven to be very compatible. So I want to listen to a sample of how some classic Jean-Luc Ponty music sounds enhanced by the voice and lyrical contributions of John Anderson. We're going to listen to track 7 of Better Late Than Never. This is called Infinite Mirage.
Messages they see, many won't come up to show you the way to set you free. 'Cause you are the one, you are the one. Infinity, infinity. It's the next picture that you see, more and more dancing in reality. the moment that you first release, the question comes alive. How are we supposed to mesmerize this manic state of mind when we are the one? Yes, we are the one. Infinity, infinity. How we create the pictures that we see, more and more dancing in reality. Realizing if you don't like what you see, just change the reel on your movie. We are infinity, infinity,
Pretty cool. Next, we're going to turn it around and hear some classic Yes music enhanced by the violin of Jean-Luc Ponty. I'm not going to say the title and spoil the surprise, but about 15 seconds in, when Jamie starts playing, everyone's going to know what this is. So let's check this out.
move yourself. You always live your life, never thinking about the future. Prove yourself. You are the steps you take. Take your chances, win or loser. Be yourself. Your every move you make, you and that's the only way. Shake, shake yourself. Your every move you make. So the story goes. Owner of a lonely heart, deceive her free will. Don't deceive her free will at all. 'Cause you got a free will deep inside. Don't deceive her free will at all. 'Cause you got a free will. Don't deceive her free will at all. You got a free will, free will, free will, free will, free will, free will, free will now.
During one of these little song breaks, you actually put your guitar on. What are you playing right there?
Well, I was going to show you that you mentioned the album was reimagined, and one of the things that with you being and I being a Yes fan, although I think I was with Jean-Luc when Yes was big, so I didn't have the same experience that a lot of Yes people did. You know, I heard the hits. Everybody else that are writing me about topographic oceans and epic things. I mean, I never heard them. I still hardly have heard any of it. So when I met with John on Skype, the first thing he said was, look, I was very close to Steve Howe. It was like my right hand, you know. He kind of wanted to know if he could rely on me to be not just a sideman, but really part of it. He mentioned that he played guitar. At the time, I didn't know him, you know. And I promised him, I said, look, this will be my pleasure to do that. He said, and I want you to be yourself. I don't want you to even bother to listen to Steve Howe or Trevor. He says, we want Jamie Glaser, which was monumental for me, you know, although I get that with other projects. I'm not, you know, I was almost surprised that John wanted me to divorce myself from Yes. A lot of people write me about Yes as if I was used to be in there. And it's a very interesting experience. But the only thing I really have to do that's any Yes-like is cop the licks that are known, you know. Owner would be. If I didn't play that, nobody would know what song it is, really. I mean, you could do it on synth. But little things like Trevor Rabin's great, which is the background, you know, part. I switched it up a little. And it's funny because when Trevor came to our Los Angeles show, he came over and he hugged me. He said, great job. And I knew he was there, right? But I'm messing with his parts.
Right.
Because you know, he created some particularly that song. And it's a great pleasure, you know. And with Jean-Luc's music, things were changed. On the original Rhythms of Hope, I created that part.
Yeah.
And they knew I created it. They said, well, make it more funky. So it got much looser. And those little changes make APB very, very different than what we did with Jean-Luc.
No, I love it because myself and a lot of the people that are interested in this band are familiar with the other stuff, and you've changed it enough that it's refreshed it, but it hasn't been like you're 3/4 in and go, oh, that's what they're playing. You know, so it's good. It's perfect. Because if you just take a note for note thing, what would be the purpose of that?
It would. And here's the thing. There was some hesitation at first, at least in the meetings, to have me in the band right away, because the big fear was that this would become Jean-Luc Ponty Band featuring John Anderson.
Right.
And the branding is very important these days, and what people think. And indeed, when we got on the road, and you alluded to this earlier, there was this kind of comfort, because the Ponty Band, we were not only on the road and recorded, but we truly love each other. I mean, I'm not sure I'm as close to my own family as I am to these guys, and we know each other. We've been through growing up together, experiences and so forth. And John was frustrated during rehearsals, our first rehearsals, because he wasn't sure exactly how to communicate with us. You know, here we are. Wally Minko is one of the greatest educated, you know, players. He can read music like crazy. That is my strength. I'm one of the, in fact, I have a course out about reading. Nobody teaches people how to read. They just give you more and more stuff to read. And they're kind of secretive. Studio musicians have a secretive formula, and I have a course called Turn It Up, where I give those techniques and tricks and tips away. I just feel that guitarists are getting the raw deal now. They're getting the tablature from people on YouTube, and they eventually have to go to me or someone else to learn how to make a living. So it took about 2 or 3 days, to be honest with you. John even suggested to our tour manager, look, I'm not sure how to communicate to these guys. And so we worked very, very hard at first so we could all kind of talk to each other. And John is not, he's road trained, he doesn't read music, and he's not sure about, he won't call a chord progression by its numbers, or he does a lot of stuff by his genius and by his feel. There was one tune we did where he took his guitar and just kind of showed me. He says, I don't really know what that is. Just try what I'm doing, One of the reasons why I'm so excited about this, Dan, and love this gig is indeed something magical happened with this band. And we had 10 days of rehearsal, very short, actually, 5 hours a day or 6 hours, save John's voice especially. But there was a magic that happened, and fresh magic. Yeah. It wasn't that we were just successful with Ponte in the days that had the crazy audiences and all that stuff, great audiences. Something happened. We knew that we were doing something fresh, something that, they're still fusion bands, they're still prog bands, but they all kind of, to us anyway, the ones who made this music, they all sound like they're either copying us or they're trying to revisit it. We don't feel we're revisiting older styles.
I'll tell you what I did to make it even fresher for me. I bought the album, but I didn't listen to it. I went to the concert having not heard the album on purpose.
Man.
So when you went into all these wondrous stories and You and I and some of the other Jean-Luc stuff, I had no preparation for it. So I was hearing it all for the first time. And then I came back and watched it and everything. So, okay, well, I want to encourage everyone to check out the album we've been talking about and go to the band's website, andersonponteband.com. Check out their tour schedule. If possible, go see the show. I mean, it features top-level musicianship, 2 bona fide music legends, by which I mean Jamie and Wally. And,
a good man. I'll send the $5 in soon.
Now let's redirect our spotlight and talk about Hear the Silence, which you published in 2006. I bought the book, and just as I was finished reading it, you put out the audio version. I was compelled to also get that because when you hear the words spoken by the author, it adds another dimension to the experience. And your reading style is well suited to the material because the friendly quality of your voice really embodies the spirit of helping others, which was your incentive for creating it. You have a gift for self-expression, both verbally and musically on your instrument, and an interview like this in your audiobook. Before we get to the more serious content, and this ties in with the touring days you're talking about, I have to say the funniest part of the book is a story about jumping out the window.
Oh boy!
Can you recount that for the listener?
Yeah, I positively, I'd be glad to. We were touring, and in those days we had parties of a kind. Again, reaching back to the gigs, we'd bring back other musicians, we'd bring back ladies that we wanted to meet. Here we have a day off in Scottsdale. By the way, I wish I could get you to another show. I guess maybe we will, right, in Arizona, because in Scottsdale I had 101 fever. John had no voice left. Wally was sick. Rayford had a basket there with tissues. We were all sick, and nobody, and we just plowed through. I couldn't hear. Both my ears were clogged, and I had a sore throat. It was, I don't even know. I'm trying to not remember the show, but people are still talking about how we got through, and they liked it. So I'm very happy. But this one was in Texas, and we decided to have a party. And what a party meant was we tell people what hotel room to meet in, and anything went. You want to bring a beer? Great. You want to drink Avion water? Great. You want to do drugs? Go ahead, whatever. And so what generally I did was I made sure to bring my guitar. And for obvious reasons, I get to meet a lot of people. Girls like it. And I was assured that after the party, I may have more fun. So I brought the guitar and I played the favorites of the crowd, whatever it might be, Jimi Hendrix, Fusion, AC/DC. And I noticed that a whole bunch of people were stoned for lack of a better word. A lot of pot in those days. And this long before it was anywhere close to legal or for medical reasons. And they were smashed. And I'm a prankster. I thought that I would prank everybody. So there's a sliding door window, and I jumped out. The only thing is that this was a ground floor.
Yeah.
It's the ground floor, and it had like a brick thing around it. So as soon as I jumped out the window, I jumped over the fence, and so I was not there, right? I don't know what happened. Anyway, it comes to the next day, and there's a Texas music paper that said that I jumped out the window of the hotel and that they were trying to find out whether I lived,
Okay.
And we pull up the cars for sound check about at 4 o'clock, and there's a ton of people, maybe a couple hundred, doing a vigil. They have candles.
Candlelight vigil.
We're praying for Jamie Glaser, and we love you, Jamie. And we pulled up, and we're like, I remember Jean-Luc with his accent. He says, "What is this? What is this? What is this?" I said, "I don't know, man. I have no idea." Anyway, we found out later it was in the paper.
Well, yeah, because you fell like 5 feet and then pranked everybody, and they were so stoned. For all they remembered, they were on the 5th floor. But to show up, and there's a candlelight vigil.
Yeah, there's candlelight vigil with posters, and then the adoring, wonderful fans. When I walked out of the car, they noticed, and people were cheering. They figured I was saved.
Well, on one level, it must have been flattering to see all this genuine concern. Instead of
what? Yeah, even now when we're talking in this interview, I'm moved by it positively.
Yeah.